Since the time when the Fierce Deity was first revealed, we have witnessed countless theories and debates regarding the entity's origin. Who is he? What is his story? What purpose does he serve? While these questions may never be truly answered, a further analysis of Majora's Mask has revealed a surprising revelation. To begin with, let's first discuss the land of Termina, the setting of Majora's Mask. This region has been noted to be the parallel world of the land of Hyrule, with many denizens of both lands appearing nearly identical. Termina's history, like that of Hyrule, is comprised of tragic circumstance. Long before the events of Majora's Mask, the kingdom of Iana dominated the region. In many ways, it parallels with the kingdom of Hyrule. However, both kingdoms differ in their ideologies. The kingdom of Hyrule prides itself in its reverence to its matriarchal deities, and of course, the golden power known as the Triforce. The kingdom of Iana, on the other hand, likely chose to shun away the goddesses. To support this, let's take a look at the stone tower, a massive monument built for seemingly unknown purposes. Interestingly, the Triforce does appear on the tower, but only in a mocking fashion, in which statues lick the Triforce in a taunting and suggestive manner. At the top of the tower stands a statue of a face pointing towards the heavens, likely in a mocking behavior. Regardless of the purpose of why this tower was built, it is clear that this structure mocked the golden goddesses. The reason why I say this is due to the 4 pillars standing on top of the tower. In many ancient societies, phallic pillars were placed to show signs of masculinity and military strength. In fact, during the time of antiquity, many societies built towers, pillars, obelisks, etc. to memorialize and symbolize masculinity. Here on top of the stone tower, we have 4 pillars. And before we delve any deeper, yes, it is hard to believe that Nintendo of all companies would include something like this in one of their games. But moving on, the number 4 is crucial here. In the land of Termina, we have the 4 giants. These entities were treated as gods. So in summary, we have a stone tower mocking the golden goddesses and the Triforce, while displaying that their own gods, the giants, are superior. And for a time, Termina was united. According to Andrew's grandmother, Termina wasn't always divided into 4 worlds. The 4 giants guarded the people of Termina without fail. The Terminians would also hold a festival during the harvest season. It was also during this time when the giants would speak to the people. This festival would be the precursor to the Carnival of Time. However, disaster struck. The kingdom of Iana found itself in a bloody war with the Garo nation. Adding on to that, the stone tower became cursed, in which the tower became inverted. Instead of leading towards the heavens, it now leads towards the underworld. And just like that, the people of Termina became divided into 4 worlds. In many ways, this draws parallels to the biblical story of the Tower of Babel, in which man desired to climb its way into divinity by building a tower to the heavens, only to have God strike man down and divide the people across different languages. When the kingdom of Iana dissolved, its surviving denizens likely made a new home in the center of Termina, which is known as Clocktown. With time, a new culture blossomed, and the old harvest festival was transformed into the Carnival of Time. As said by Andrew's grandmother, each year, the season of harmony begins when the sun and moon are in alignment, paying homage to the way that both nature and time are tirelessly in the process of progressing. The Carnival of Time is when the people of the 4 worlds celebrate that harmony and request fruitfulness for the year. For ages, people have worn masks resembling the giants who are the gods of the 4 worlds. Now that we have discussed a brief history of Termina, let's include both the Fierce Deity and Majora into this equation. In the stone tower, a depiction of Majora's face is seen. In addition, inside the boss room of the Stone Tower Temple, many depictions of Majora is also displayed. Adding on to that, sunlight is largely used within the Stone Tower Temple, both in the shape of light arrows and the use of mirrors. But anyways, who exactly is Majora? Well, let's take a look at the mask. Its eyes do bear resemblance to the astrological symbol of the sun, In addition, it is vibrant with multiple colors. I believe Majora in itself is symbolic towards the sun, and I know I will run into skeptics. However, in the final boss room in the fight with Majora, what kind of structure do we see surrounding the mask? Well, it looks like a sun. Now, what does all this mean? Well, let's take a closer look at Majora. In the final boss fight, we can infer that Majora is in fact a woman. Just listen to her voice. So let's take all the facts we know concerning Majora into account. She is female. She represents the sun for some reason. She is depicted in the Stone Tower Temple, upside down mind you. Eventually, she was converted into a mask, and she has aspirations to destroy Termina. Remember what I said how Termina and Hyrule both parallel? What if Majora is the Terminian equivalent to Princess Zelda? To support this startling claim, let's take a look at the first Zelda game in the timeline, Skyward Sword. In this entry, we are introduced to the goddess Hylia. She has displayed the ability to send huge tracts of land up in the air. In addition, many of her crests do suggest a symbol coming from the heavens, or in this case, the sun. In the game, she does renounce her claim as a god, to be reincarnated as a mortal, which is the first Zelda. And if you still want more proof, let's look at Ocarina of Time. During the last portions of the game, Zelda gave the hero of time a unique power, the light arrows. In the Stone Tower Temple, sunlight is largely used to get around. At the entrance of the temple, the face of Majora is seen upside down. And what do we have in this temple? The light arrows. Speaking about these arrows, they are largely used or bestowed by Zelda. In Ocarina of Time, Zelda bestows light arrows to Link. In Twilight Princess, she flat out uses them. And considering that Majora does indeed represent the sun, it would make sense. Stone Tower Temple uses sunlight as one of its themes, both in its reflection of mirrors and of course the light arrows. In addition, we know that the Kingdom of Iana absolutely hates sunlight. Just listen to the King of Ikana's quote, "O insolent one, who has brought the unthinkable into a land as dark as Ikana, my servants have fallen namelessly before the light that guides you. However, the darkness in which my servants live is, after all, fleeting. You shall see with your own eyes just what kind of thing true darkness really is." And considering you have to use sunlight in order to defeat this mini-boss, perhaps the Kingdom of Ikana and Majora have a connection. And what about the King of Ikana's final words? "On my kingdom, shine the light of justice." We will come back to this. This quote is pretty important. But back to the Stone Tower Temple. We also know that this temple mocked the Golden Goddesses in favor of the four giants. And strangely enough, Zelda does not have a Terminian counterpart in Majora's Mask. Or does she? Since we all know that countless villains in the Zelda series have tried and tried again to kidnap Zelda to steal her power. What if one of them actually succeeded? What if someone was finally able to kidnap Zelda and steal her power? Where would the power go? One theory would be in Majora's Mask. The creation of Majora's Mask, in other words, is the culmination of going against the gods, to take the power of a god itself, which would explain why the mask is so adamant about destroying all of Termina, and it would explain why Majora's face is displayed upside down at the top of the stone tower as a way to mock the gods. And this would also explain why Stone Tower can become inverted. This temple can turn upside down if light hits this red emblem. Remember how Majora represents the sun? After Majora was persecuted and turned into a mask, she likely cursed the tower to turn it upside down. But is there more proof to support this startling conclusion? This is where we hit the final nail in the coffin. The Fierce Deity. Since we have inferred that Majora symbolizes the sun, it is easy to associate the Fierce Deity with the moon. In fact, there is a crescent moon on his chest plate. But before we go any further with this theory, let's take a look at Anju's grandmother's quote. The season of harmony begins when the sun and moon are in alignment, paying homage to the way that both nature and time are tirelessly in the process of progressing. The Carnival of Time is when the people of the four worlds celebrate that harmony and request fruitfulness for the year. Majora in this case symbolizes the sun, and the Fierce Deity, the moon. Their relationship with each other symbolizes progression, and it is that very concept is why the Carnival of Time is celebrated. But let's go even deeper. What is the relationship between Majora and the Fierce Deity? Going back to Skyward Sword, the goddess Hylia had her chosen hero. This hero would defend the goddess and secure ruling lands. It would not be too difficult to speculate that this chosen hero would be the Fierce Deity in this timeline. But what if Majora and the Fierce Deity had a more intimate relationship? To answer this question, let's take a look at Cafe. He was about to get married with Anju, and what kind of masks were they about to exchange? The Sun and the Moon mask. Keep in mind that Majora cursed Cafe by turning him into a child. But why? Could it be that the Fierce Deity and Majora were actually lovers? And the reason why Majora cursed Cafe was due to jealousy, that Cafe was about to have a loving relationship, a relationship that Majora never had. To best answer this question, let's take a quote from the creator himself, IG Aonuma. In an interview to ask who is the Fierce Deity, Aonuma answered, "The best I can give you is just a suggestion. The best way to think about it is that the memories of all the people of Termina are inside of the Fierce Deity mask. In other words, the relationship between Majora and the Fierce Deity is largely symbolic. The Fierce Deity is Termina incarnate, the same Termina that persecuted Majora, a representation of man versus the divine. Majora, formerly a god, so loved the denizens of Termina, only to have its inhabitants persecute her. And the Fierce Deity represents all of Termina, including their reverence to the four giants. And the reason why Majora says that the Fierce Deity is the bad guy is because she is Termina's Zelda, and by fighting her, you go against divinity. As we have stated before, the kingdom of Iana likely did not revere the goddesses, and because of this, the gods wanted to destroy all of Termina. The king of Iana knows about this persecution of the light, the persecution of Majora, which inevitably led to his kingdom's downfall. As he said, "On my kingdom, shine the light of justice." During the events of Majora's Mask, the tragedy finally ended. The Fierce Deity, Termina incarnate, confronted Majora for the final time during the carnival, in which the sun and the moon are in alignment, when each pays homage to the way that both nature and time are tirelessly in the process of progressing. The Fierce Deity, representing all of Termina, bears all of its ambitions, pain, and aspirations, while Majora represents fate and destiny. Termina was destined to be destroyed by Majora, but the aspirations of all of Termina, the Fierce Deity, refused to accept its fate. At the end, Majora's Mask lost its power. The Fierce Deity mask presumably followed a similar fate, but it was through their interaction that progress followed. Termina finally became free, and its people can finally progress. Perhaps Majora not only wanted to destroy Termina, but also wanted to reunite with the Fierce Deity. The hero of time does receive the mask inside the moon after all. But ultimately, this is all just merely a theory. At the end of Majora's Mask, the mask salesman does say that all the masks in Link's possession are indeed happy. Perhaps the Fierce Deity mask finally received its closure in its confrontation of Majora. Who knows? Personally, I like a bit of mystery in these theories. It makes it all the more interesting. I know this theory is compiled to be largely symbolic, with the Fierce Deity not being a single individual, but rather an incarnation of Termina itself. That inference was made purely by Anuma's words. But what if we take all the information presented and form it into a timeline? This would begin with the creation of the world by the Golden Goddesses. Once they have completed their works, they left behind the Triforce, a relic capable to grant the wish of any user. What happened to the Triforce is another mystery. In Hyrule, the Triforce was hidden away in the Temple of Time to prevent its misuse. In Lorule, the Triforce was simply destroyed. While we don't know what happened to the Triforce in Termina, we do know that it was mocked. In Hyrule's timeline, the goddess Hylia is the guardian of the Triforce. As a result, we can infer that a similar goddess has done the same with Termina's Triforce, which in this theory is Majora. Majora, being the guardian of the Triforce, is problematic. The neighboring kingdom of Iana became more and more prideful, believing in their own power and the four giants, rather than that of the gods. Now, here is where I debate on whether or not the Fierce Deity is an actual person or an idea. Perhaps the kingdom of Iana wanted something to stand against the sun goddess, Majora, to create an antithesis to stand against her. In their struggle, they fashioned an idol for them to worship, an idol crafted in the image of the four giants, a giant man known as the Fierce Deity. If the Fierce Deity was more of an entity rather than an actual person, it would make more sense in my perspective. This idol was made purely to oppose Majora. Perhaps it was used to kill Majora herself. Nevertheless, the stone tower was built to mock the Triforce and to mock Majora. Notice how both Majora and the Triforce are both mocked together in the same tower, further supporting their connection. Majora's power was held in a mask, in other words, to develop a user-friendly tool as a way to access her power. Eventually, Majora's mask found its way in the hands of the mask salesman, and the plot of Majora's mask follows. What I found particularly interesting about this whole ordeal is that Majora's mask never found peace until she fought against the Fierce Deity. If Majora does represent the sun, then it is interesting how she wanted to destroy the earth using the moon. Did she have an ulterior motive here? It's almost if Majora's entire goal was to destroy the evil within the Fierce Deity's mask. If that was her goal, then it probably succeeded. All the masks in Link's possession have become happy at the end of the game. Once her goal was complete, she had no use sticking around in the mask, so her presence left from it. Was she trying to meet the Fierce Deity in an act of violence or an act of love? Another mystery. No, this is where I have come to a stone wall. As of the moment, unless I am missing some grand clue that fits the pieces all together, there isn't much empirical information regarding the Fierce Deity and Majora. But I compiled all the information presented to me as best I can. I hope you all enjoyed at least that. But one question still remains. Who is the Goddess of Time? Or for that matter, the Sheikah? What role do they play in all of this? Well, that is a theory for next time. And that's right, the next theory will be about the Goddess of Time and the Sheikah. Before I go, I do want to give credit to the Wolfess and her written work on the Hyrulian Pantheon, the Minor Gods. This written piece is instrumental to make this theory happen, and I would highly recommend giving it a read. And speaking about the channel for a little bit, Episode 3 of the Road to Zelda Wii U should be up next Monday. All the Twilight Princess HD news has gotten me pretty hyped. Who knows, I just might take a look back to the Hero Shade theory. Also, I am developing a brand new series, Versus, where I pit two characters against each other and analyze empirically who would win in a fight. For the first one, I am doing Link vs Cloud, And wow, I have my work cut out for me on that one. It should be up sometime in February. Well guys, I'm going to have to be heading out. I have some more theorizing to do, but please do take care of yourselves. I know the winter lately has been causing some chaos, so I sincerely hope you all the best. Have a great cup of coffee, lunch, breakfast, dinner, whatever, and have a phenomenal rest of the day.